NASA directors' confusion over the moon landing footage. Where the heck did they land? We're talking about Apollo 11, the mission that touched down. Moon landing scientist Farouk Elbaz revealed how the mission control was baffled over where Apollo 11 mission had actually touched down, adding crew director Deke Slayton's furiously asking him, where the heck did they land? Now, in the mission control, the tense moments before the celebration, there was confusion and finger pointing. Questions asked of Professor Elbaz, the leading geologist on the Apollo program, who was responsible for the selection of the landing site to be smooth and like a carpet, no rocks, no jutting areas. The 82-year-old recalled in the exclusive interview how he believed his team calculated everything, every minute detail to ensure the astronauts had the perfect landing site on a flat area of the moon, but what was being relayed back to them did not match the photos of the zone that they had actually selected. It was nowhere near flat. Now, remembering the day, he said it was absolutely stunning when Armstrong looked at the moon and he saw very large rocks that his spacecraft was heading to, because we worked it so beautifully that there was absolutely no question of mine that he would go there and see a flat area, flat like a carpet. He was supposed to land beautifully. There should not have been absolutely no rocks. We made sure that there would be no big rocks, but that's not what they got. Now, as the descent began, Armstrong and Aldrin found themselves passing landmarks on the surface of 2 to 3 seconds early and reported that they were long. Eagle was traveling too fast, and the consequences could have been unspeakable. 5 minutes into the descent, into the burning, and 6,000 feet above the surface of the moon, the guidance computer distracted the crew with the first of several unexpected 1201 and 1202 program alarms. Inside Mission Control, computer engineer Jack Garman told guidance officer Steve Bales it was safe to continue, and this was relayed to the crew. But when Armstrong looked outside, he saw that the computer's landing target was headed for a huge crater, and so he was forced to take over control. The former test pilot cleared the crater and found a patch of level ground, just seconds of remaining fuel, but what later became Tranquility Base was actually miles from where they should have been, actually about 3 miles off. Professor Elbaz explained, we were at a loss for a very long time. Where they were on the surface of the moon, we could not figure exactly what crosshair they had landed at because all of our calculations said this is it, and all pictures that we saw from the landing were not it. So he explains something happened, and it turned out that none of us were wrong, but actually, as the lander separated from the mothership in orbit of the moon, there was a little bit of extra velocity and a push. So it actually sent the spacecraft not to the place where we had all calculated, but 4 kilometers downstream. It's about 2.5 to 3 miles downstream. He said we were still safe because we had an ellipse of 11 kilometers long, because before the mission we did not know if they would land exactly in that spot or somewhere else. It transpired that the issue had nothing to do with Professor Elbaz's team, but instead calculations made over the separation from the command module. So luckily his team's contingencies meant the area was still safe and everything worked out fine, but Professor Elbaz said the mood in mission control was very tense. He said we made sure that spot where they were supposed to land had an ellipse of 11 kilometers long that was clean of rocks, clean of bad craters. So the landing was fine, except the exact spot where he was supposed to put the Eagle was not, because he had an excess velocity and that was not calculated in the system. I felt personally responsible at that point for any mistakes. We were the ones that selected the landing site. We were the ones that said it was clear and it's free of rocks, and we were the ones that assured everyone that it was safe. Then here he comes saying what he said, and it was like, what the HELL happened? This is what Mission Control said. Professor Elbaz explains he remembers a furious Deke Slayton, who was in charge of the crew, asking where Apollo had landed. And he continued, of course, we felt responsible for the mess. People looked at us immediately, and the flight planners and the engineers. And Slayton, the head of the astronauts, came to me and said, where the heck did they land? and I had to say it was not where I thought they would land. I didn't know at the time that the spacecraft had acquired this extra velocity to make it go beyond the landing point. And that's the whole reason why Neil had to take over manual control, because he simulated the landing in the place we selected for him, and he knew from the pictures in the simulator he'd used 1,000 times that he was seeing something totally different. There were rocks the size of a car, so he immediately took control of the spacecraft and moved away from that location, and that's why we had no idea why he was doing it, because we couldn't see what he saw. So that's astonishing, isn't it? They're lucky they found a place to land where they could land. This is on Express UK by Callum Hoare. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.